In this demonstration, I want to talk to you about images. Specifically, I want to discuss how you can identify in different browsers using developer tools how people place images inside of their websites, either through the CSS background images or through the HTML image source tags. First of all, we're going to be sort of using this demo site that I created, and later I'll show you how we can create that as part of your lesson. But right now we're just going to kind of click through it, and I'll show you how you can find out the way that the images were placed into the website. Google Chrome, it actually has the developer tools built right into it, so you don't have to download any extensions to use those developer tools. So let's say that I go up to View, and then I can go to Developer, and I could either do one of two things. I could view the source, which would show me the entire page of source code, or I could just say go to Developer Tools, and what it's going to do is it's going to show me something very similar. Now in my browser I have it set so that it goes off to the right side for my Google Chrome. I prefer it that way in this particular case because I like to be able to resize things like this. So you can dock it differently if you want to click down in the bottom left, you see that it will automatically dock it in a different place. And it's this little icon right here again. So it's going to do something very similar. It shows me my HTML, and you can see as I hover on the left, it's highlighting the different sections, which is really handy. So if I open up where it says section, I can go into the article. You can see it's showing me visually how much space that article is taking up. I'll do a drop down here, and then you can see that as I hover the H2, it highlights it. I hover the image, it highlights it, and so forth. Okay, now that's the first thing around looking at the HTML. And again, it will also show me a preview, and it'll show me the size. And it tells me also what its natural size is. You see that it says it's naturally 500 by 344, but because of the way that it's styled on the screen right now, it's only 258 pixels by 172 pixels. So that tells you that the actual size of the real image is 500 by 334, even though right now it looks small. The other thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and close this. Right now on this right side, it's showing me what the box model is. We haven't really started talking about that just yet, so don't worry about that. It's showing you about margins and paddings and things like that. Okay, now down below in my example, below the HTML, it's showing my styles. And again, it's going to show me the styles that are the matched CSS rules for the thing that I currently have selected. Now, again, let's say that you don't want to try to find something just by hovering it here. Let's say that you want to look at something and right-click it. Again, you can right-click something, like let's say we want to look at the title called Jet Setter and say Inspect Element, and it'll jump to that element. Okay, and it shows that this Jet Setter picture is actually a placed element inside the HTML. It allowed me to go ahead and jump straight to it in the HTML, and it says that it's an IMG tag who has an attribute of the SRC or source, and it gives me the actual pathway to the file in the file system so that it can show where that image source is, and it can display it right there in the browser for me. And again, that's also going to be true down here. If I were to right click and say Inspect Element for this picture, it jumps down to the source and it gives me its corresponding styling. Okay, now let's say that we want to see what this picture of the airplane is. Well, if I right click it, let me right click a little bit higher. I right click it and I go to Inspect Element. It gives me something very different. It goes and it shows me the content. It's not giving me an image. Well, that's something that you might want to take note of. Watch something that happens even with these pictures that I know are placed. If I right click on Jet Setter, see, it gives me the choice to save the image as. Okay? That means when you see that, it's going to be something that is set in the HTML. Alright, let's inspect that element one more time. Okay, so Jet Setter. You see that Jet Setter is an IMG tag in the HTML. Now if I right click it, it gives me the option of saving the image as some other name, okay, to your computer, your hard drive, right? If I do this down here on this picture, again, it's going to do the same thing, save image as. And because if I inspect the element, you see again that it's an IMG tag. I refer to the IMG tags as placed images. It's not necessarily something that is an official way to discuss IMG tags, but if I ever say that something is a placed image, then what I mean by that is that it's been placed in the HTML specifically by using the IMG tag. It means that it is selectable as a picture, and I can just right click it and save it straight away from the page. Okay, I could right click it and I could save it. And what I want you to notice that's different about that from, say, this picture of the airplane or even these pale colored dots is that if I right click on the airplane, let's try to do it a little higher, I get a save as, but I don't see anything that says save image as. What it's going to do if I say just regular save as, it's going to try to save the entire web page for me. That's because this picture of the airplane is a background image that is set up in the CSS. It isn't something that's set in the HTML file. Okay, remember we have two separate files. We have HTML, which is our main source document, and then we reference the HTML up in the head of the document. We reference the CSS file there, okay? And remember, the CSS file is a separate file that has appropriate styling attached to it. So that means that this picture of the airplane and the sky and everything, that picture is a background picture that's been set in the CSS. And that's a really simple way to tell right off the bat, is if you right click and it doesn't say save image as, then you know that it is in fact a background image. And I can also look at, here, let's open this up a little bit. If I were to try to maybe right click on the dot or something, then I can see that I still can't get it. So what you can do in that case is you can go ahead and look at your CSS. Now, there's some different ways of doing that, and it's going to be a little bit different in Chrome than it will be in Firefox. Alright, so I'm going to show you in Chrome something that you have to do to get information about background images. Let's say that I want to just right click and look to see if there are any options about background images, and it doesn't seem that there are. But what I can do is I can say view page source. Okay? And if I view the source, you see that what it did was it opened it up in a brand new tab for me, or if you have your settings to open in a new window, then that's what it'll do. And you can see that it opens up the HTML file, okay? But what we're interested in is seeing what the CSS has as placed images. So inside of the head, you want to find where it links to a CSS file. All right, we don't right now we don't care about the Google font CSS. What we're looking for is our linked file, and this is called base.css. So if I click on that, it'll literally open up a new tab yet again that is the CSS file. And what you can do is, in here, is if you do a command or control F for find, what you can do is you can search for the word images, since that we know is our image folder name, or look for image or images or something like that. Or if you're not sure, you could also search for file extensions like JPEG or PNG. I knew that the folder was called images though, and you can also take that as a reasonably good guess. And you can see that it highlights everywhere on the page where it's using an image file as a background image. Okay, now you can see that first of all, the first image that is referred to is this one called wing.jpg, and that is the background to the entire HTML page. So that is that picture of the airplane flying through the sky. And we'll go over some of these rules later as to what's happening, but basically it's resizable and it will cover the entire page because of background size, property, and the cover value. And then the next one that we see is for the body background, and it's got something called circles.png. Okay, and if we wanted to actually see this picture, one of the things that we could do right here is I could copy this. Let's look at wing actually first of all. So I could copy this path, alright, and then what I could do is I can look at the way that it's set up here, and this is the root directory for the folder. It's e3-images, and then you see it's referring to base.css. So if I'm in the base file, and the base file is specifically referring to images without having to go up any other directories, then I know that the CSS file is sitting in the same root directory as the images folder. So I'm going to copy this images/wing.jpg, and I'm actually going to paste it on top, get rid of that base.css, and I'm going to paste it right there. And then it shows me the actual picture, and you see that it's actually a large picture because it'll allow me to expand it, and it's a rather large photograph. And what's happening, just so you can understand what's happening, is it's a very, very big photograph, so that it would actually show up in a high quality on a very large screen, but because the way it's styled so that it's going to work as a cover and percentage, so that whenever the screen is resized, pardon me, it will actually scale it down and it'll still look good. So I'm going to hit the back button, and we can go back to our CSS file. And if I wanted to look now at the circles picture, and it's those light little circles that kind of disappear, I can copy that, and I can also come up here and paste it right there. And you see it doesn't look like there's anything going on here, but if I were to right click, I get the save image as. And what it's allowing me to do is to download that image. And the reason that you can't see anything is because, let's go back again, is because if you look at the original picture, you can see that it's basically like a very light white circle. And what it is it has transparency so that you can see through it, so that you can actually see the clouds behind the circles. And whenever I look at the file on a white background, as I'm doing right here, you can't see anything because it's a light white transparent circle on top of a white background. But the picture is actually there, okay? And then something else that you might notice if you were to do the image find is that there's also a setting here that's been commented out that's called H1, and it has, actually this is the part that's commented out, and it has something where it uses a different image. It's called title.png. This has comments around it, therefore it's actually not being read. So if you were to look for that and you see this, it's something that got commented out. Okay?